Profiles in Cinemania presents Rampage! The Rampage is a time-honored tradition in both film and the medium of violence in general. Rampages date as far back as the Iliad, which is primarily about Achilles killing literally every Trojan he could see after they killed his lover. The Rampages popped up all over since then, crossing genres and medium from the Count of Monte Cristo to Carrie. Yahweh and the Israelites got up to a few in their first hit album, The Old Testament. The entire run of The Punisher is really just a black-clad trope on two legs that Marvel invented to insert rampages into Spider-Man and Daredevil. But then they lost control, and it won't quit until every last one of those bastard editors is dead. So why are we talking about it now? Rampage movies are currently experiencing a renaissance as big as any sub-genre has seen, marked by the John Wick franchise, but spiraling to heady zenith since. Also, I've had some spare time on my hands and I've been watching quite a lot of them. But first, let's be clear. Rampages can be inserted anywhere to great effect, or blended with almost any genre, but at its purest, a Rampage movie is a subgenre of revenge action or thrillers whose entire plot centers on a protagonist who has decided to murder every fucking guy involved in a particular grievance. You know a rampage might be coming when you hear,
"They took everything from him, and now they're going to pay."
The they in question usually don't know the protagonist was a cop, soldier, gangster, hitman, or super spy that they just forced out of retirement. Now, by that measure, Russell Crowe's epic Gladiator has all the story hallmarks of a rampage, but not the pacing. The murdering and revenging does not have to occur all in one place or time, but even then, both the action and the spaces in between typically feel breathless. They can't stretch out over so much time that other significant stories happen in between the bouts and gouts of mayhem. Think of it as the difference between the simmering pot and the one you just let boil over onto the floor and then it kills your whole fucking family. Rampages bear a lot in common with, but are not quite the same as, the sub-subgenre of a lockbox action, like the inimitable Die Hard, in which protagonists are trapped in one space and have to fight or clever their way out of the situation. Now, they might have to rampage a bit to get out, but true rampages are a choice, dear listeners. A choice that I wholeheartedly support, by the way. You live your truth. A lot of revenge movies include rampages, often as the climax, but few make the rampage their sole focus. Early Rampage movies like Death Wish featured vigilantes whose revenge was partly generalized against any and all ne'er-do-wells, making them also vigilante movies, another subgenre, but almost always capped it off by brutally unlifing the specific person who killed their parent, spouse, child, friend, career, freedom, dog, doctor, car, barber, random person they didn't know, but it's symbolic, damn it! Now, the Rampages took a breather for a bit in the 90s and early aughts in favor of big blockbuster set pieces from Jerry Bruckheimer and Michael Bay, or more thinky thrillers, or even kinky thrillers, if you know what I mean. Basic Instinct, anyone? I guess we were just a lot less angry at the time. The USSR had imploded, the Cold War was over, we were high on victory, so the collective zeitgeist took a Xanax and a nap on vengeance. So much so that we even saw a deconstructed reverse rampage in Joel Schumacher's Falling Down. It's a rare example of self-reflection in American gun-nut cinema, where the pistol-packing paranoiac anti-hero turned out to be the bad guy all along.
Spoilers!
Oh, come on! 1993 is way past the statute of limitations on spoilers.
Besides, everybody knows Falling Down is actually a scathing commentary on the Cold War paranoia and Reaganite dog whistles of the preceding decade, like welfare queens and immigrants.
Hey, Ethan. Ethan! 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 Ethan!
What?!
Rampage!
Oh, fuck you.
Then enter a tall, lanky actor with certain skills in a bit of a slump. No, not the surfer guy. That's right, Liam Neeson, the soulful Irishman known for playing gentle giants, shocked audiences in 2008 by tearing Paris the biggest asshole since Jet Li in Kiss of the Dragon, in the surprise hit Taken. Poor Paris, never gets a break. He revitalized the genre so hard, he birthed a sub-de-dub genre, Dadpage! And every washed-up middle-aged action hero and stunt coordinator got a piece of the action. Now at this age, it takes a genre a little time in the morning to shake off the sleepies and get a cup of coffee, But by 2014, boy did it ever take out the trash with the first installments of both The Equalizer and John Wick. Since then, we've been awash in Rampages, both good and blah. Horror writer-director Lee Whannell got in on the action with a funky little hybrid sci-fi body horror rampage called Upgrade. Bob Odenkirk was the right kind of hero to set his enemies on fire in the almost parody Rampage flick Nobody, which gave way to the full-on self-parody genre send-up Boy Kills World, in which the titular Boy kills his way through the Hunger Games while self-narrating his blood spree in the voice of super spy Sterling Archer. You get the idea. Streaming platforms have given women a way into the traditionally male-led dominated field of high-speed violence with movies like Jolt, Gunpowder Milkshake, and especially Kate. You should really check out Elizabeth Winstead and Kate. So, whether you like your murder machines men, women, or otherwise, black, Irish, or Hawaiian, you have access to some of the choicest cuts of senseless manic violence available. But those films need no more profiling than that, racial, gender, or otherwise. Because while Hollywood was slumping and dumping, the rest of the world took no such breaks, with films like Hardcore Henry and Chocolate, and especially Korea, which has been the king of rampages and revenge films in general since Oldboy in 2003. Not to mention the Korean-American joint venture Snowpiercer. And after the John Wick bump, they have been figuratively and literally crushing it with all kinds of innovations on the sport. Movies like Revenger, in which the hero maroons himself on an island full of the people in need of a little killing. The Villainous, which opens with a spectacular first-person point-of-view single-take action scene like Hardcore Henry and The Raid had a very, very angry baby. And the massive Don Lee refuses to be derailed. He's unstoppable, just Don Leeing straight through everyone between him and his fill-in-the-blank. Even other action movies saw the visceral, Glee, and made their action more rampagey. Indonesian phenom The Raid does this phenomenally. Vietnam got into the game with Fury and Furies, plural. India partnered with the US to make the striking Monkey Man, and on and on. Even France got a little redemption and gave itself the chance to manhandle half the lowlifes in Bogota with Mayhem. Then, along came another rampager from India in 2023 that will set your head reeling with Cinemania. Fair warning for some major spoilers inbound. They're just unavoidable to make clear why it's so cinemaniacal about this movie. Fair warning for some major spoilers inbound. They are just unavoidable to make clear what is so cinemaniacal about this movie. It's based extremely loosely on an incident in 2010 when a gang of about 30 tried to rob a train in Kolkata, and a single Gorkha officer of the Indian Army, who happened to be on board, went just completely ham on them with a kukri knife. The movie they made was marketed alternatively as either Die Hard on a Train or a bloody rampage, depending on the trailer. So I went in expecting something somewhere in the middle, like The Raid, which seemed to be a major influence. But here we go. So our friendly neighborhood commando Amrit is on a long train ride with his army buddy, but also his secret love, Tulika, who has been engaged to a stranger by her important politician dad, who is also on the train. In fact, the whole fam is there. There's some quick, by Bollywood standards, romantic setup, not even a film title, and then enter the rubbers. Pretty clear setup that Amrit needs to pull up his John McClane pants, save the day, and in so doing convince future father-in-law to let him be future son-in-law. But the early action sequences are kind of pedestrian. Classic Bollywood smacking each other around. Where's the gory rampage I was promised that would make Gareth Evans queasy? I suspected they were going to kill off Amrit's buddy any minute to give him enough gas to get into orbit. But despite many desperate and scrambling attempts and even a grievous injury, that fucker just refused to die. More than 30 minutes in and I had a feeling I was in for disappointment. But then, when we are, I shit you not, literally halfway through the film, the head goon viciously fridges Tulika right in front of our man Amrit. Smash cut to the one-word title card. Kill! The all caps and the exclamation points you heard, those are in the title. And with that, we are off to the races for the remaining 45 minutes of non-stop stabbing, choking, breaking, throwing, corpse display hanging, all in the tightest of confines, the aisle of a crowded train car. Umrit's buddy actually does bite it before the end, but what does it even matter now? It cannot be overstated how hard of a rug pull this is. It's not like Bollywood never fridges a girlfriend or wife, but when it puts a budding romance on screen like that, it's rare that they don't give the audience a happy ending. Probably with a musical number. And the brutality of the scene itself is way past Bollywood action standards. It is prolonged, it is on screen, it is messy, and it is not glamorous. Not the sort of thing they usually do to a starlet. Killing her was not in the bandits' plan, but one impulsive moment sends the whole situation completely out of control. That's the obvious point of the movie's characters and story, and the result is intentionally disconcerting. The way a good Rampage ought to leave us feeling a heady mix of excitement and discomfort. But less credit to the actors of the script. Our couple has decent chemistry, but nothing striking, and the script is as barely there as it ought to be for a Rampage. But the movie itself, in its structure and its tone, especially the tone change, it explicitly disorients the audience from start to finish. Less like a magic trick and more like when your older brother would say, "Hey, look at my hand over here," and then smack you in the cheek with the other one. This may be the first of a new sub deep beneath the surface of the earth subgenre of the surprise Rampage. But before we wrap up this rampage of rampages, one more recent entry to the genre to consider. Crazy Samurai 400 vs. 1, which is exactly what it sounds like. Now, famed samurai Musashi shows up for a duel only to get ambushed by a small army of 400 men, which he proceeds to slice, dice, maim, and julienne in a single, continuous 77-minute shot. You heard me. And no, they didn't achieve that by chasing Musashi from one small encounter to the next as he tries to sneak or counter-ambush his way out of there. No. With only a few exceptions, they just stick the poor son of a bitch in a clearing, field, or courtyard, surrounded by 20 to 30 people all at once. It's quite likely there are a few hidden stitches along the way, but let me tell you, there were extremely few opportunities for those, clever tricks that enabled movies like 1917. An object wiping completely across the frame, a wall cross, or a fast camera pivot. So even if there are probably a few literal breaks when they were actually filming, they were few and far between. And all the individual shots to make up the oneer are still unbelievably long for a fight sequence. Instead, they rely on a lot of practical theater tricks, hiding a key strike behind a wide pillar so the actors have time to paint themselves and fake blood out of view. Duelists circling each other so the camera gets a better view, because if the camera rotated around them, like it normally would, the sun would cast the camera's shadow into the frame. Now, to be honest, this film winds up as more of a technical demonstration than a true film. You're not going to see a lot of blood, and hardly any gore or wounds. They add in a few CGI splashes for effect so you know there's been a cut, but there just isn't time for them to apply or maintain the practical fake blood and effects to maintain the continuity for anything more substantial. And you're also not going to get a lot of flashy sword fight choreography. The film goes for a more realistic approach, as much as you can given the ludicrous concept. It emphasizes Musashi's economy of movement, lashing out blindingly fast at small openings like snapping a towel, and then immediately drawing back so he can continue defending himself from the 5 other guys all trying to counter-murder him. And besides, they just haven't got the time. If he took long enough to show off on all 400 guys, we'd never leave the theater. So the technique is subtle, and with a single camera trying to dance around 20 fast-moving combatants, we don't often even get a good look at it. A lot of critics thought it was boring, and it's probably of most interest to real samurai movie aficionados, who are deeply familiar with different stances and what a subtle shift in strike angle implies. Who will cheer when the protagonist picks up 2 swords, because that's what the actual Miyamoto Musashi was known for. And yes, this is based on a real dude and a real fight from the 16th century, if greatly exaggerated. But what really makes this a rampage are 2 things. First of all, you may think this is really more of a locked box or a chase flick because he's trying to escape an ambush. But know this, Musashi starts the movie by knowingly and literally jumping into the ambush. He first drops into the film from way up in a tree. He could have just walked away before the movie ever started, and has several more opportunities later on. But he just doesn't, not when there's more killing left to do. He later admits in a very short moment to himself, when he's killed everyone he can see immediately around him, and more goons are still on their way from Amazon Direct, he says to himself that he simply underestimated the number of guys waiting for him. But he had always planned on slaughtering his way to freedom. Second is the pacing. As you might already assume, a movie-length action sequence staged as a oneer is gonna feel pretty breathless, and even with whatever sneaky cuts they managed to hide, all of the actors look it. We watch Musashi in particular, played by actual underground street fighter turned actor Tak Sakaguchi, gradually wear down from precise master swordsman to wild barbarian. He's panting and swaying for the final 20 minutes of the film, which is just exhausting for an actor to actually do. And you can see it too in the small moments of acting that Tak is allowed in between his high-intensity interval rampages. The way he drinks water in each of his short breaks becomes less polite, more crude, and his demeanor actually becomes less reserved and more emotional as he loses the energy to maintain his poker face. Crazy Samurai may not be a good Rampage movie. Hell, it may not really be a movie. But a good Rampage should leave you exhausted, and this movie certainly does that. It shows a kind of monomaniacal dedication to, we're gonna make a full-length, one-shot samurai movie and damn the torpedoes. This movie commits to the bit so hard, it probably needs a restraining order. It simply can't stop, won't stop. Just like your friend and mine, John Wick. Or Yahweh. This has been another profile in Cinemania. This episode was written and performed by Daniel Scribner.
Editing and sound design by Ethan Ireland.
Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio.
And Meteor at meteormusic.bandcamp.com.